If on my Starbucks app, if they pop up a message saying, can you give us a 5-star rating, that was you?
Specifically in Starbucks, you've probably seen them ask, do you love Starbucks? And that was us. As soon as somebody had made that order, while they were waiting for it, you could ask them about the experience. And then after they picked up the drink, you could say, did the order work out correctly? And nothing else was really good at that.
What are the secret sauce of actually getting the ratings up?
Hi everyone, welcome back to the show, Beyond Algorithms. This is Frost.
Hi, this is June. Today we have a new guest.
Yeah, it's Robi. And just before Robi started talking a little bit about himself, he is like the mastermind of keeping all these like well-known brands that you heard about, like Starbucks, Nordstrom, Overstock, SG, to learn more about their customers, to really deliver on what their customers want and remove things their customers don't like. So, Robi.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's really nice to be here. Thanks for having me. My name is Robi Ganguly, and I co-founded a company called Apptentive back in 2011 in Seattle. And over the course of 11 years, we raised $18 million. We worked with really large brands to help them with, in particular, their mobile application satisfaction, asking for customer feedback, understanding what customers wanted, what loyalty really created, and how to engender a lot of connection with customers so that they would come back over and over again and expand basket size or time spent, depending upon who they were. So companies like Starbucks, Nordstrom, IHG, Marriott, Philips, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, we were very horizontal. So we were across a lot of large consumer applications that most consumers have on their devices. And I think that as of last count, 1.5 billion consumers around the world gave feedback through that Apptentive system. So when you think about that, one of the things we're really proud of is we only had to raise $18 million to get to the billions scale of customer voice. In a bunch of ways, the things that we did for consumer brands are things that business-to-business brands have been doing for a while at small scale, but we were able to take it because of mobile to really large global consumer brands. And I think that was pretty awesome.
Very impressive, very impressive. So if on my Starbucks app, if they pop up a message saying, can you give us a 5-star rating, that was you?
Specifically in Starbucks, you've probably seen them ask, do you love Starbucks? And that was us. We actually pioneered this question. A lot of people know us as the customer love company because we tested a lot of conversational questions like, are you enjoying that? Are you having a good time? Do you like this app? And the thing that we found in testing this, especially in Western cultures, is that consumers have a really hard time lying about the word love. So you ask them that, they're much more likely to say no, which is great, right? Because then you're getting really good signal. If you say, hey, do you like this? A lot of people say yes, but then, for example, after they say yes, you might ask them to go to the App Store and rate it, and then they'll rate it 3 stars because they like it, but it's not fantastic. And so a lot of our measurement science was in the early days just trying to figure out what the right questions were to ask in order to get a mobile customer to answer it and give signal, right? Because you get lots of answers to, do you like this? But the signal is very poor.
So in that particular regard, the goal is not even to get to the highest level of ratings, is to get enough of a signal so that you can actually improve.
Yes, absolutely. We had this conversation with brands over and over again. And one of the companies that we worked with was like Nordstrom. Right. And so Nordstrom, if you know Nordstrom, you probably know great customer service. If you know Nordstrom, you probably know love. Like people say they love Nordstrom. And Nordstrom really had a hard time asking people this question, do you love this? So they started to work with us because they had some pretty poor ratings. And they started to work with us and they got really upset. They were like, we don't like this question. We don't think it's right. And I said, well, how is this possible? You're Nordstrom, right? Like everybody loves you. That I know, like there's all these people who have stories going back years of like, I returned this thing, sight unseen, it didn't matter, they took care of me. Why are you so afraid of this question? I'm like, well, it's software. Nobody loves software, etc. And so they decided that because we had this really strong point of view on the language and our set of algorithms around how we would show up and when we were showing up, was maybe a little opaque to them, that they should just do it themselves. So they literally, like, I think year 2 of our relationship, pulled us out and said, we're going to just do this on our own. And after a few months, their ratings tanked. Like went from like 4.8 down to 1.9 or something like that.
Wow, 1.9.
It was really bad. And so the thing is, the team saw the ratings go down, but they also saw retention going down. And then they saw new installs, really important metric in the app space, dropping, right? So they came back and they said, oh, we screwed up, right? Like, I guess that the combination of things that you do and the language you use, they are actually related to these metrics that matter for us to grow the business.
Robi, I actually want to double click on a little bit on the question design because I think this is fascinating. I think that's one of the things when people are like designing like either the NPS questionnaire or to know if people like them or not, they will struggle because one is you want to know what people really think. If you don't use the right word, people usually don't answer what they think. How do we encourage people to actually even reply, right? Because if I receive a questionnaire who asks me like, Frost, do you like our service? If I don't like them, I just don't respond.
Yeah.
Right. So at the end, they only got people who love them to respond with an NPS score of 95. But I just silently churn, which is exactly against why the brands want to know how their customers are thinking. So very curious about how you design it and how do you even like try to monitor or estimate these data sets.
Did you run experiment? Did you do A/B testing? I think the Nordstrom case was like an inadvertent A/B testing, right? With you, without you, big difference. How did you arrive at the languages in your survey?
A couple of things on this, right? Like the switch to mobile. We were very much, when we started out in 2011, our whole attack strategy was we're building a set of tools for people who make mobile apps. We were going to support Android and iOS. Those are the two dominant platforms. And we're going to start over. We're going to start with a set of assumptions that has nothing to do with anything that came before us, because we think mobile is changing how people interact with computers, not the other way around, right? And so as a result of like that philosophy, when we would go in and introduce ourselves to companies that had like survey platforms or that had research teams, we get in trouble because the research team would say, oh, well, you can't do a statistical analysis on this. You're not allowing me to like do these 3 question types that are required for me to actually have. And we would say, that's ridiculous, right? Like what you're talking about is patently absurd, because why we're here in the first place is your response rates are garbage. People would call us in because they're like, I got 1,100 people out of my 50,000 person, 50,000 MAU app. 1,100 people answered a question, and now I'm trying to make decisions out of that. And all we're doing is arguing because it doesn't feel like 1,100 is enough, right? Or we talked to Starbucks, and they had 17 million people, and they had no feedback loop in the app, but they had like 500 or 700 app ratings every month. And so they're scouring, right? Like this huge company, Starbucks, is scouring 500 reviews in the App Store to try and figure out what people want. And we were like, your whole set of assumptions is ridiculous. You should start out with the fact that people are in your app, and then start with the simplest question that people will answer. And so that's what we tested for. And do you love was 92% of the time answered. So consumer behavior is different and researchers are not acting different. We did a lot of like throwing elbows inside of corporations, being like, your stuff is stupid. The way that you think about this is really ridiculous. You're not getting the answers that you need. You're not getting the ROI that you need. And if each customer voice is costing you like $550 based upon the cost of these research studies, and then you're only getting 1,000 voices, you could pay for us, for an entire year and get 1,000 times the voice. So that's how you think about like a lot of upending, kind of research and institutional knowledge. But like our first goal was figure out a way to get somebody to answer the question.
Fascinating. I'm curious on that researcher versus you guys kind of a tension. Do you have a hypothesis or speculative take on like why that is the case? Is it the focus on academic rigor that is sort of blindsided them from the possibility? Or is it the lack of direct access to the in-app capabilities? Is more like statistician versus software engineering kind of a divide? What's your take on why, like obviously very high credential, high caliber people, why have they not come around before you guys?
Yeah. I think that the answer is a few things, right? So one is dogma, just people doing what is always being done and being like the inertia of like, well, our team works this way, it works this way. So I think that is institutionally true across organizations. We saw a lot of people who are like, well, if we ask this separate set of questions that we've never asked before, what do we do about all of the data that we have? Isn't that useless? That I think is some of it. But another aspect is the institutionalization of research in academia. So there's this company out there called Qualtrics. Qualtrics in a bunch of ways has like commercialized and popularized research and survey software and sold a whole lot of companies a tremendous amount of software to effectively do surveys. And what Qualtrics did as a go-to-market is they first and foremost went to higher ed, and they went and sold to higher ed. If you go look back at the history of it, Ryan Smith and his dad built this company, and his dad was a researcher. And so they took what they knew from him teaching this stuff, and then they built products that helped those people, and they sold them to school. And what that did is first it got them a customer base that was pretty loyal, and then it got them a user base who graduated and went to companies and said, what do you mean you don't have Qualtrics? Your tools are garbage because they don't do what Qualtrics does. So that's a fantastically smart strategy. It worked out really well for them. That company has been bought 3 times now in the last 6 years. It's been very valuable, but what it's done is it's ruined a lot of people's brains, because they'll show up inside of a corporation after 4 or 6 years of schooling using a tool set and a set of methodologies that they've been trained are totally required in order to answer questions. And then they tell everybody around them, or people hire them and say, you're the expert. And they say, well, what we need to do is we need to use a tool that does these things, typically like Qualtrics or Medallia or Alchemy or a couple other companies in the space, but Qualtrics ends up at the top. And if it doesn't do those things, it's not good enough, period, point blank. And then if it does those things, then I can give you these answers. And so then that institutionalizes a whole silo of an organization that basically is responsible for telling everybody they're not allowed to ask questions. That's what a lot of research teams we ran into did, is they would tell product managers, you can't ask that question. That's not something we've approved. And our product managers are like, we're not giving them access to this. They don't get your tool because we fucking hate this, right? They were so pissed off that they were being held back from just talking to their customers that's where things broke. And we ended up selling to product managers.
I'm curious, Robi, when you are talking about this, what is the best timing when you are researching to get the answers? Because I don't know how they say when you send email, the response rate is low.
Yeah, there's a couple buckets that we use to help customers design about asking questions. So we said there are moments of completion and there are moments of success in software, right? And you got to design around those places as being places that are acceptable to interrupt and ask a question. But if you're in the middle of a 3-step purchase process, you select this thing, then you have to decide what shipping speed, and you have to put in your payment information, and then you get out. Nowhere in that is a good place to interrupt and ask a question. And there are a lot of flows designed in software, experiences that are happening that need to be completed sequentially, and you need the customer to be focused on them. So never ask questions in those places unless what you're doing is testing the flow itself. That's the only exception to that rule, if you're testing the flow itself. But everything else should be like, I've completed this, or I failed it. Those moments of actually completing we've resolved, right? Maybe something's over and canceled, but then it's resolved. That's a place. And then moments of success are extraordinarily valuable because a lot of software is designed around complete a task, get a win, right? So when you purchase a drink at Starbucks and you're waiting for that drink, you're like in that moment of anticipation of like, I'm about to get this thing I've been looking forward to. That's an awesome time. And it actually is we found with Starbucks, a really valuable time to ask that question because they have nothing else to do. Right? Like they just don't. And so we helped Starbucks design and launch mobile order and pay a long time ago. Like back when this was built, it was the most mind-blowing thing that you could open up your app, pick a store, and then say, I want my drink. And then it would tell you in 8 minutes at that store, it'll be ready. And you could walk over and pick it up. We helped them design that. And one of the things that we were able to do that they couldn't do with anything else was as soon as somebody had made that order, while they were waiting for it, you could ask them about the experience. And then after they picked up the drink, you could say, did that order work out correctly? And nothing else was really good at that.
So Robi and June, what does NPS mean? What's the history of it when it started becoming the gold standard by everybody in the industry?
Yeah, so NPS is Net Promoter Score, and it was designed by a couple consultants years ago from Bain as they were working with a bunch of their large customers. And it was designed as a metric to predict growth. They tested lots and lots of different questions, a lot of different correlations from those questions to the performance of the company. And after several years, what they came out with was, if you ask this question on a 0 to 10 scale of would you recommend this product or service to your friends or family, that correlated when asked consistently with companies that grew faster. Now, the thing about their studies was they did this with companies that were really, really interested in figuring out growth. And so all those companies were willing to take their methodology and apply it to ask as many customers as possible. They also did it in a time in the early 2000s when email was popular with high response rates and when you still could ask questions of people in a survey format in person, a questionnaire like an enterprise rent-a-car, who was one of their early customers. And so they were getting really high response rates. So back then, this stuff made sense because you had companies that really focused on We want to figure out what drives growth, and companies that could get their customers to respond at a really high rate. But where it is now is that a lot of customers use NPS as if it's the customer satisfaction metric. And they use it by asking it, in specific points in time of a set of customers who have typically completed something. And so you see a lot of NPS metrics that aren't really correlated with growth activities around companies. They're measured and used for customer satisfaction activities, and that's not what it was designed for at all.
Thank you, Robi. Yeah, I think if I want to add anything on that, it's popularized also because it's not industry dependent. It's universally the same kind of question. You can take it everywhere. So as people get used to it and you go to other companies, you start to popularize it because you can say, I have, like, all companies can present their NPS scores. And then the assumption is those are comparable. They're not necessarily, but at least it's like one question you can plug in everywhere, and that'll be that eventually become the one question golden standard. If you ask only one of them, one of the questions, this is one to ask.
Yeah. And I guess it stands to be really explicit about the methodology. The methodology specifically says ask the 0 to 10 question, but then there's a group in the middle, right? Like 6, 7, 8 that are tossed away. 9 and 10 are promoters. And then the rest, 0 to 5, are like detractors. Yeah. And so you take the promoters and then subtract the number of detractors to get your NPS score. So you can have a negative number, you can have a positive number, and that's how they use it to say across industries you can utilize this, because it gives you this net, right, of the promoters. And through that lens, it's super elegant. It sounds great, right? Like everybody wants one perfect answer, but it's also kind of lazy today.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. I think the history makes a lot of sense now because it was designed in the early 2000s, and they talk about how and if it's still useful nowadays.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I also want to ask about the entire industry about sending out a customer satisfaction survey like once per month. Like how is that NPS report even useful? Because for my personal experience, sometimes when I receive the email, I already forgot what happened. I don't even remember what I bought from the store. It's like, Franz, tell us about your store experience. I was like, yeah, shop there recently? I think so, maybe. And then I had to actually look it up.
My sarcastic take on it is you get that because their VP's bonus is dependent on it.
That's why NPS is bullshit, by the way. Like NPS as executed at most companies is some VP's bonus is dependent upon a high NPS. So then they spend a shitload of energy designing a process that gives them a higher NPS. They're like, oh, we'll ask the customer after they do these 5 steps and this thing has happened. And if they say, yes, they're really happy with it, then we'll show them an NPS survey. And all of a sudden that bonus is like, the VP is like, yeah, I got 75 grand last year. But the company's not learning anything because like Frost is saying, you're emailing somebody a week afterwards. And the set of questions that you feed them could totally screw up all of this. I mean, I think that the thing that's really ridiculous for a lot of millennials and younger who have been really raised with technology is they don't think anything should take a week or a month. Like it's either now or it didn't happen, right? It's just like it's completely immediate.
I'm fully on board with the whole NPS thing, and I think you can probably tell us more about the science behind the NPS or something. But like I think that the wording is specifically designed to serve a specific purpose, and in a lot of occasions it doesn't work. Like I think my utility company was asking me, like, would you recommend your friend? Like, why in any normal human being's daily conversation would I recommend my utility company?
That's right.
Wait, you didn't recommend PG&E to me? Isn't that why I use this only option in California whatsoever? No, I'm actually thinking like, okay, we are now here. We are all data people. If you were to revamp NPS to make it actually useful for the company, Robi, they say you want to redesign this. What would be the signal? And June, what would be the signal? I'm curious. You would want to see and hear and get from customers. That's actually useful.
I think so. NPS, as it was designed, was supposed to align with growth. Higher NPS was supposed to mean that company would grow faster because what it was really telling you was that the product and the experience and all the combinations were good enough that somebody would say to somebody else, you should try this out, right? That's what it was designed for. And so what I would do now is I would say, look, we have all this implicit data, what people are doing in our software. They're taking this step, they're clicking on this thing, they're making this purchase, all that implicit. And then I would design explicit, hey, how did you feel about this experience? Did you love this one, right? Like really quick across pieces of the experience. And I would use that to build a much richer picture of a customer profile, right? And the customer profile, you could have the set of categories of your customer persona, and each of those might have different arcs of like happiness as well as usage data. But within each of them, there'd be a core of like what a retained customer who continued to purchase looked like, and also explicitly said, I'm having a good time. That weave of like, we see what you're doing, it seems like it's good, and you're saying it's good, now gives us a lot more confidence that we're on the right track with you. And conversely, if what we see looks like you're doing good, but all of your explicit data says you're unhappy, well, we've trapped you. That's not a highly retained customer. It's just a trapped customer. That's totally different. But a lot of companies have trapped customers who never get to say, I freaking hate you because you're PG&E. As soon as I could switch, I will, right?
Well, I cannot agree with you more. I'm actually curious, June, what do you think about all these like signals Robi was saying tied directly to user lifetime value? Or like when advertisers are doing, right? Like that's actually the number they want to tie back to the long-term ROI. Is there a model we can do that? Because we don't only want users to be happy, we want users to use us more and spend more with us, right?
It's a sizable topic. I'll try to give some first reactions, I suppose. I really love what Robi was talking about earlier on. You can see what the customers are doing, right? You have observation of their experience already. And then now you can add on top of it, like how much they, like what they say, like what they do and what they say. And I think my professional experience is more in the sort of what they do part. I prefer not to talk to people if I don't have to, expensive. And then also, error prone. And then they will fake love you without, but with enough sample size, you can do that. But I'm a firm believer in you can track the actions of the users, and that will tell you a more complete story. And of course, if you can marry the two, that's better. And I think what a lot of the marketers or product managers are missing is the true value of your existing users and their experiences and the level of technology that we currently have access to in order to track everything that's happening, right? We have clickstream data. We have their browse behavior data. We have, how long that they have stayed on any of our property kind of data. All those actually in aggregate tells you a much more robust story because of the sample size and much more refined story. And then the survey, the asking people question part is a very orthogonal complement to this process. But if you don't have that original process, then you're as good as a researcher, a professor who don't have any data. You need to go out there and find data. I think Robi, very insightful observation. Like that whole research methodology is coming from academia from the perspective that I want to be objectively finding out this particular group of people versus if you're a business, then you have those customers, especially in today's world, right? If you're a Safeway, you even like get people to sign up for a membership, you have some data. And then the more digital you have, especially the more digital native companies, then the better data you have. So Robi, any thoughts?
I think that's right. And I think we advised all of our customers, especially if they're early days, we said there's basically a stack that you need to invest in. And at the top of that stack, if you're building a software application, is analytics of some sort. You should know what people are doing, right? And then as a piece of that stack, you should have a listening service like us. You should hear what people think and how they're feeling. Both those components of the stack are necessary requirements in today and going forward, because if you're not utilizing that, there are going to be people who compete with you who do and kick your ass. And I think that is what makes me super excited about where we are with AI. Just in the last 6 months of developments, the things that have come out have given, I think, a whole set of possibilities to companies to actually in real time take action that is appropriate, right? So there's a lot of systems already that are built around next best action thinking, like what should we do next? And almost all of that is influenced primarily by like implicit data, the observation of what people are doing using analytics. But if you also start to bring into that data set what people are saying, oh no, I didn't have a great experience, right? Then your next best action could be to divert right away. And what I'm seeing out of some of the customer service chatbots that are being built and some of the tools that OpenAI is showing us where you can actually take it and be domain specific, right? You point it at your corpus of support data. Sometimes the next best action is to say, no, this was bad. Why? Well, because I can't figure out how to turn notifications back on. Great. Here's the link to like the FAQ on how to turn notifications back on. Boom, your problem's resolved. And we've solved that, right? I think that for a lot of our customers was an impossibility 3 years ago. And now it's very possible.
Yeah. And for a much cheaper price.
Way cheaper.
It's faster.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest satisfaction factor too. I don't want to wait in line for an hour for talking to a customer support agent just to refund my $30 mistake of discount codes.
Right.
I have another semi-related question because you're helping Nordstrom improve their app store rating. What's the secret sauce to actually, like, beyond doing things what truly matters, which is get the valuable feedback and improve the experience genuinely? Like, what are the secret sauce of actually getting the ratings up?
So for a large consumer brand, the secret sauce is really easy. You have a set of customers who are already using your stuff and they're latently happy. And so what we were doing is helping a lot of companies tap into that latently happy group of people who would go about their business, enjoy ordering the drink, enjoy getting a pair of jeans, and keep going about their merry way month after month, year after year. And we would say, hey, these people look latently happy. Let's start to find the right time for us to ask them a question. And then let's make it really easy if they say, hey, we love this, to go take an action, to go. And that's what we really did for a lot of companies is we said, you have a lot of latently happy customers and you're trying to go answer all the ones who are negative in the app store. What we're going to do is we're going to light up this group that's just not talking and make it easier for you to identify them, to not bother them, and to give them the tools to go promote you and talk about you in the app store or talk about you somewhere else. Also, one of the things that we built that I was really proud of is early on, we architected to say, it's not just here's an answer coming from a customer. We would say, here's an answer coming from Frost. And that answer is pinned into this profile we created. So the next version that comes out, we could say, well, Frost was really unhappy with notifications. So we fixed that. So we can send a message to everybody who told us that they're unhappy with that and loop back, right? And what you do in the early days with a set of customers, when that happens enough times, is you build trust and credibility. So for smaller teams, we were like, you got to do the hard work. You're going to have to fix this app, right? But win, right? Like tell people that you've done it, tell them they're part of the solution. And guess what happens when you do that? The same thing that happens when you tell us about a bug, right? When our customers called us up, we'd be like, oh, we screwed up. I'm sorry. And then when we shipped it, we'd be like, we fixed it. Thanks for your feedback. Well, all those people, they're not more mad as a result of finding a bug and having it fixed. They're more trusting. They're way happier.
This is awesome. I did not realize I'm a latently happy customer for a lot of the services that I paid for, but I learned it today. And then you're also doing it in honestly, the right way. I think everyone should be doing it this way versus buy some fake ratings from a dark market somewhere and then lose your ratings temporarily.
Oh my gosh. Right. You have stories about this, right, Frost?
I'll just tell you, Google knows better than you think they do. It never works. I think the scary part is you don't even know if those are fake ratings. Because a lot of times you hire agency and what the package they sell you is they say, hey, we're going to find all these happy people and they'll rate you highly. But how do they find the happy people if they don't have SDK in your app, like Robi's solution? So the truth is they do not know who are the happy people. So what they do is they just find the most expensive people online who's willing to rate you 5 stars and are real humans. But they have no relations with you. And most of the times they are in Indonesia or some remote countries that you barely have any customers. And they will use VPN to pretend they are in United States. Then Google would basically send you a very angry email and say, hey, we have noticed you try to game our review system. Stop this.
Yeah.
Or we're going to ban you.
Yeah.
Right. And then that's Google give you a good benefit of the doubt because they can also ban you completely if you are not a big enough app that they think, oh, I don't think you did it on purpose. You probably just did something by hiring the wrong folks. All right. So thank you so much for sharing all these stories, Robi. If you have like any one like takeaway for anyone who wants to just like hear from their customers and learn better as a mobile app developer, like what is like one thing you feel this is so easy to do other than just use Apptentive and make your life better? Because I know that's always the best solution.
I mean, it's a great solution, but I think the thing I would say now more than ever and going forward is because AI can free us up to do a lot more with customer voice, to analyze it, to make sense of it, to understand trends. And it's so much cheaper than ever before. You should be designing your data collection, including explicit questions. Right? You should be designing your product to have places where you can add in more information and context from customers and making it easy for them. And it doesn't matter if you're using the solution from Apptentive, which is now part of Alchemer, or if you're building it yourself or kind of doing this piece by piece, but if your design conversation isn't about both pieces, then I think you're going to lose out to people who are thinking that way because they're going to have way more data to take action on and to understand.
Yeah, definitely. I think the AI user researchers is going to be a lot more, I would say, objective and willing to read every single response from users.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
are text inputs that were not possible before.
That's right. I think that the thing that people love to hear is their own name, right? I think people love to hear their words reflected back to them. So if a customer named Frost says, I didn't like this because it sucked in this way, and then you respond back and you're like, I heard you thought this sucked, let's do something better, which you can do now in an automated fashion. Frost, you're more likely to take that and be like, oh, that's cool. And then if I say, hey, this was crappy, and then somebody says, oh, we understand you thought this was crappy. Again, that reflection is actually like a piece of connecting and like weaving through how to make people understand that you really do want to make them happy, and you can do that at scale now. You really can. That was not possible 5 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. June, do you have anything to add as like one last advice to anyone who try to really hear more from their mobile users or to get 4.8 star ratings?
I'll actually reiterate what Roby said earlier. Just do things the right way. I think if your app objectively have some room for improvement, I'd rather hear the real feedback versus having a fake 4.8, 4.9 ratings and without realizing I'm actually losing customers. So your product and your customer experience should match hand in hand.
I have a question for both of you, because I don't often get to talk to two people who have had the data and the AI experience as you. When you think about how much time and energy people have spent into trying to make sense of analytics and where we are now with AI trying to like help us do it, because I've seen team after team after team say, we have all this data, we don't make sense out of it. What's the best strategy now to like actually make sense out of your data intelligently? Are there good tools? Are there techniques?
Great question. We can have a whole episode dedicated into this. My very quick take is, especially if you're a larger brand, you should have a dedicated function to translate data into insights. Mm-hmm. I think AI would not be able to do fully, and it won't give you the level of granularity it deserves. I think especially for larger organization, the observations that I've had in the past is you will have people who are sort of investing in this too deeply that they just read all the charts, everything, and then basically got an information overload without really realizing or ability to actually identify real trends. And you'll have other, some sort of alerts that only will give you an alert when your site went down. And then the in the middle kind of insights is some of the function that I use to manage. And I think a lot of the larger organizations won't be regretting if they invest in this particular kind of function. Ross?
I have a completely different perspective. I actually think the old-fashioned business intelligence team is all gonna to be reformed. I do agree the top business intelligence people will stay because they have specific insight, they understand the brand, they understand the company, they align with the company strategically. But anyone below them, who I call them data analyst or quantitative analyst or qualitative analyst, content reviewers, all these should just be AI. So, for example, I now run a company, Loop. So what we do is we actually just do all these things for you. And then at the end, we kind of serve as a business intelligence arm for you. Like basically I serve as your business intelligence person, but everyone under me can be AI, then a group of like very junior people. So that comes to the hard question that Robi, you are really asking is, okay, if all these people, they didn't start from data analysts, how can they become a senior basic intelligence person?
Right.
One day, if they're not already today, right? Like today we can definitely be, and we just use AI, but like how do the next generation actually get from there? And my take on that is it's a very different skill nowadays, right? Like say before it's about, I have so much data, I have to decide what charts to draw so I don't get information overload. I have to have the executive review so I know what to talk with the upper management. But now it's like, okay, you'll be given this perfectly already by AI.
Yeah.
How do you align this strategically with the company and have a long-term sustainable strategy? I think that goes into more domain expertise.
Yeah.
So I'll see more generalist. Like, okay, I don't only study data science, I also study marketing, I also study retail. I also understand like very specific perspective, say at Nordstrom, I'm like a jewelry expert. So I know exactly with this, what brand of jewelry should I buy?
Yeah.
Like, how should I sell these jewelries, right? So I would say that will be the future that I foresee as I get deeper and deeper with AI right there. And I think it's a really positive change, June. I would rather I didn't spend all my junior years doing all the things AI was doing and directly learn the domain expertise that truly move the company's top metrics.
That's how we all grow. But a big plus one on generalists versus specialists. I think the future is definitely going to be rewarding more generalists and deep specialists, especially for knowledge workers. If you're a deep specialist NBA player, good for you. I think you won't be replaced by NBA.
Well, thank you so much, Robi, sharing his expertise about if you want to know how to increase your App Store ratings or understand your users more. Now you know which company you should talk to. Apptentive. And now I'm about to wrap up the show, but like just Robi said, we should ask right now to give us any feedback. And if I have anything you want to talk to us, please just comment or find me at Frost on Twitter and for June.
Or you can find me on LinkedIn. And if you're a latently happy customer, give us a 5-star rating.
Yeah, and Robi, how do people find you if they have more questions about NPS?
I'm on
or
Twitter.
non-NPS.
Not NPS, yeah. Well, if you have questions about them, you're gonna get swear words in response. But at Ganguly on Twitter, and I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.